Badu da ni ja zu ji da gi chu ni ji be su nan ji zhu la be ji san ji zhu ba zhu
Namo la ye ke dan lo dan ne jin ke zhu da dan be ye ke na da ru ku ji da na cha na ta ji ke do da gi chu do 다가 수상 줄란 저거 된다 나무 되네 집이 중요한 라제린 봐 중고도 도모인 라제린 봐 딩아 딩도 도모인 라제린 봐 집이 라제린 봐 송요가레스 디노네 당아도 페지 집이 랑갈 친사버레스.
So when going over the text, The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, we can see that the true meaning of the text is the division of the three different types of capacity. The teachings that are shared in common with beings of small capacity, the teachings that are shared in common with beings of a medium capacity, and the teachings for the great capacity, or the small scope, the medium scope, and the great scope teachings. So the true meaning of the text, The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, is the division of these three different scopes or capacities. So this is what was explained in the text by the great master, Lord Atisha. And we've already gone through the great scope, and we've been giving an explanation of the great scope or the teachings for beings of great capacity.
다 집이 중요하대 양 루루 주나 셀 대면로 집이 중요하게 안는 가서 내 손을 전 집이 요 말이스 가부 요 말이스 내 손을 동안에 내 손을 동안에 지시 자네 안내 하다 말래 하다 메고 본도야게 추기 추들래 집이 중요 추레스 다 되는 가르가리요 와서나 건축선라 저선로 렌데송야 되네 샤당지야 어떤 굴레도 와르스.
So it would be good for us to go over this again and again for our minds to familiarize ourselves with it. So the teachings for beings of small capacity, or the teachings of the small scope, are as follows. A being recognizes the various types of suffering of the lower realms and wishes to be free from those types of suffering. And then, as a result of being free from the suffering of the lower realms, he or she wishes to have rebirth into the higher realms of the gods or humans. So this type of being practices refuge, the law of cause and effect, recognition of past downfalls or confession of downfalls, and so forth. So it's important for a practitioner of the small scope or small capacity to focus on these topics such as refuge and karma and its effect, and the purification of misdeeds and so forth, in order for this type of being to achieve his or her desired result, which is rebirth in the higher realms and freedom from rebirth in the lower realms. And this is the extent of the scope for a being of small capacity.
다 집은 데들레 싫어 상로 세 토아레스 다더네 내 손을 타네 하다 말 집이나 하다 말이야 제가 나지 동에 지 동에 가이 동에 시 동에 어디서 동에 동에 주 동에 차반 주지 동에 도 요아레스 대인 소사 안내페 동에 주는 집 보내 타발 로야기 주주데 안내페 집은 딩아 딩도 도모이 주거디 인사레스.
So when we speak of the teachings shared in common with beings of a medium capacity, or the medium scope teachings, these type of teachings are as follows. Being of medium capacity recognizes not only the downfalls of the lower realms of cyclic existence, but also recognizes that in the higher realms of the gods and humans and so forth, there are also downfalls. There are also various types of suffering that beings, even in the higher realms, have to endure. They have to endure the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death. They must endure the suffering, the suffering of change, and the pervasive compounded suffering. So the medium capacity practitioner recognizes the suffering in all 6 realms of cyclic existence, and then wishes to be free from all 6 realms of cyclic existence, and then wishes to definitely get out of cyclic existence, and then he or she desires to achieve the state of liberation or nirvana, which is freedom from or the cessation of cyclic existence. So the medium capacity practitioner aims to be free from cyclic existence altogether.
다간데 콜 코자 주주의 nenzinres demen to be shiro gongo chibundin to demen to be shiro nganjung samba tene chutin water sun yana jebala tene ane nyomo da le da ane dongen to bone tabal ro chi go chuju
So in order to produce liberation, one must look for the cause of cyclic existence. In order to be free from something, one must know what the cause is of what he or she wishes to be free from. So when the cause of cyclic existence is examined, we find that the grasping at true existence is the root of and the cause of cyclic existence. So it's necessary for this type of practitioner to have very ethical behavior and so forth, and to achieve the wisdom realizing emptiness, or the wisdom recognizing the nature of reality, in order to eradicate the karma and afflictions which continuously produce rebirth into the 6 realms of cyclic existence. So this practitioner wishes to achieve the wisdom which recognizes the lack of true existence, which acts as an opponent to the grasping at true existence, which produces cyclic existence. And then this wisdom has the ability to eradicate the downfalls, which then produces liberation.
다 전부 되게 되네 수수 도안도 받나지 있는 세제 다지게 도안도 고요 세제 수수 동에문도 받나지 세제 다지게 동에도 고요 말스 샴바단 이제 어떤데 그 돈을 자 주고 생고네 되네 그래서 그래 사지 살래 로야기 주주지 인사를 말배.
So when we move to the great scope, or the teachings for beings of great capacity, or the beings of great capacity, we see that this type of practitioner recognizes that he or she wants to be happy and does not wish to experience suffering, and then also recognizes that other sentient beings also have these same desires. Other sentient beings wish to have happiness. Other sentient beings wish to be free from suffering. So this practitioner then produces love and compassion, and eventually the mind that aspires to enlightenment, or bodhicitta, in order to arrive finally at his or her destination, which is the ground of Buddha, or the grounds of the Buddha. So this practitioner wishes to eradicate the suffering of all sentient beings and bring all sentient beings to a place of happiness. And the way that he or she does this is by producing bodhicitta, by first producing love and compassion, and then progressing through the path that leads to the grounds of the Buddha.
지금 전부 되게 다 세제 다지를 산다네 어떤 산다바이나 산로 자초레스 자초 인자 지금 전부를 하고레스 테메 가서 지금 되는 종고제 나로 하다메 대자도나 나로 타바도나냐 산로 마도 이제 세제 다지를 산다도 말레스 대유소서 산로 메바레스 산로 종고레스 지금 전부 되게 세제 다지를 산다바이서 산로 자초레스 테바 첨부스 어떤 정도 거서레스.
So the reason for the naming of, or the nominal designation of these scopes as being great or medium, or when we hear the term great vehicle, the reason for this distinction is the differentiation between the scope of the thinking, or the mind itself. The reason that the great vehicle practitioner is called the being of great capacity is because he or she is thinking about all sentient beings and focusing on and using all sentient beings as his or her object of observation and wishing to free them all. So this type of thinking is much greater than that of a being who is practicing the medium scope teaching or a being of medium capacity, because a medium's capacity being only wishes to free him or herself from cyclic existence. He or she wishes to achieve nirvana or liberation, but it's only for him or herself. So this is why it is called the lesser vehicle. It's because of the scope of thinking. It's because of the mind associated with these various vehicles. Small or lesser vehicle because of the desire to only be free for oneself alone, and great vehicle because the thinking is great or vast because the thinking sentient beings and wishes to free all of them.
파마니 보고 든지 멋줘요바이나 템뱀리 줘요바이나 지상 타지의 산당에 멋줘갈 산당에 샤랍 가바시요 괜찮나 아니 거야 지상으로 야불라고 그러고 대 나는 아니 지즈마도 산마다나 그런마도 산당 말에 마속가 산당 말을라고 그러고 어떤 답이 있어
야저 수르나
지상질 멋줘요바지
매주
Majuana, Majuana. That magic Mutsamala compassion, Yobayina, Koyabashira.
Meju, the Shamadan Ninja, Yobayina,
Koyabashira. That jig in Aroma the San Matabaina, Koroma the San Damayamar, the double is.
Then the cheat, the Tamal Yanja Surana.
Jig Narochi was on down the Gibu Chongoji, Nison Sandan and Tinge, Taji Sandam and Jibushambo. What the double is a mother?
So Jibuchungo, the Nan Naron Sandam,
did the Gini, then Jibushambo to Taji.
Tanche. Okay. So I just wanted to be clear on this. So when we look at the various scopes or the various capacities, it's similar to this. If one is just thinking about his or herself, it's very similar to small kind of scope or capacity. If one thinks of one or two people, then this is kind of a medium type of thinking or a medium capacity way of thinking. But if one were to think of everyone all together, to think of every being, then this would be a great capacity. So it would be similar to that kind of comparison. The minds are relative to the naming of these minds is relative to their scope or their level.
That Chimby Landal Tangas, Junde Manga doing down, that in Yabaji won sent you to the water Santa Waters, Mashiba Tintemba Tinzo, Yungi Shamba, Niji Lassa, what to Saint Jason to shoot others, two water address, San Modan. Shanchu Selam Merced and Juseni Ganane, and the Merced Lojan, Tapeji, Junde Manga Dujukune, Lojan with Sudan, Dajan Yabaji gun send you. Junde Manga Dujukune send Jean Jute, or doing to Chishuna Marbe.
So when we look at the root of the great capacity, or the being of great capacity, or teachings of the great scope, we see that the root is the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And there are the two causal factors, or two vehicles, that will allow one to arrive at the destination of the mind that aspires to enlightenment. These two are the systems of equalizing and exchanging self and others, and the 7-point cause and effect for achieving bodhicitta. So when we look at the 7-point cause and effect for achieving bodhicitta, the steps are as follows. First, recognizing that all sentient beings are our mothers. Second, remembering their kindness. Third, wishing to repay their kindness. Fourth, love through the force of attraction. Fifth, great compassion. The sixth, the extraordinary attitude. And the seventh is the effect of the 6 causes, which is the actual mind that aspires to enlightenment, or the bodhicitta. This is the first one that we'll focus on, but there are the two causal factors, not only this one.
다제냐바 제고는 세지수도 라지들 주요바다 예지들 요바 살다들스 돈레고야.
So the root of the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice is the recognition of the downfall of the self-cherishing attitude, or the faults of a self-cherishing attitude, and all of the excellent qualities of an attitude which cherishes others. So then the practitioner then begins to practice the giving and taking, or tonglen, associated with this recognition of the need for cherishing others. So this is the root of the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice.
어제 다상주 선 로장네 상주 선 냐는 거를 야부 종소나 안에 면세 조개 종와스 종주주 종거레스 면세 조가 종네 안지 조신나면데 생각을 초범bio 연락 된바 데네 디 생각을教授주요고네 안에 상주 선 줄 제바데 사지 고마도 좋다 네 들려기 매냐베 어떤게 도네 조개 종 취지여서레스
조개 종
사지 조개 종와스
And one other just factor that I forgot to mention is also necessary to traverse the paths through bodhicitta, which are the aspiring bodhicitta and the engaged bodhicitta. So that's the one thing I forgot to translate before. So when we speak of aspiring bodhicitta, there is the part or the necessity of not only sustaining it, but increasing it. We already went through the way of doing that, where one sets up an altar and offerings, or imagines the merit field and so forth, and makes offerings, and offers a 7-limb prayer, and then goes for refuge and so forth. So this falls into the category of the sustaining and increasing the aspiring bodhicitta, so that one can eventually arrive at his or her final destination, which is complete enlightenment or full Buddhahood. This allows one to continue to move towards that goal. So these are the steps necessary once one has achieved the aspiring bodhicitta. Once one has achieved the aspiring bodhicitta, these are the steps necessary to continue to move forward.
데네 조들 텐도와다 천대 세지 마냐비 줄 러바 쳔시마 안데 세지 마냐비 줄 러비 추고드는 도와스 천대 디슬라이 네슬라이 조와 천대 세지 마냐비 줄 하야 조사 대장 조사바 디바종와 세지 야네야도 산당고레스 더송데 아부 종소나 천대 세지 냥고 마레스 조사바 디바종와
Soksaba. They hakosun. Then nipa. Then sumba. Lesser. Okay. So in order for one not to lose or have their his or her bodhicitta decrease in this life or in the next life, there's necessary practices. So it's necessary for one to have accumulation, and accumulation is created by engaging in meritorious activities such as the 7-limb prayer and so forth. Limbs of the 7-limb prayer are accumulation limbs, and so forth. And then confession or acknowledgement of one's misdeeds. So this is another kind of factor that's necessary in order for one to not lose or have one's bodhicitta decline in this life, and also to familiarize oneself again and again and again with this mind that aspires to enlightenment, or with bodhicitta. So it's necessary to not only have accumulations and acknowledgement of misdeeds, it's also necessary to continuously familiarize oneself with the mind that aspires to enlightenment, in order for it not to decline in this life.
다 천대 생지 마냐바이네 조안처럼 뭐를 생지 공고로 마도 첫장발 늦질 생지 공네 사지 도도야 말해서 대시마래야 생지 공고를 세시마 생지를 마냐바들 터가려서나 나비 취지 공고 까비 취지 야술렘바 어떤데 그거래서
The Nabi Chu Pomba,
Nabi
Garbi
Chu-
Chu Nyansu
나비
Lemba.
취지 뽕 까비 취지 냐래제나
Okay.
세시마래야 생지 냐래제 아부 용고래서
So, in order for us not to have the bodhicitta, or the mind that aspires to enlightenment, decline in this life, it's necessary for us to engage in these practices. And what are the practices necessary in order for us to not have our mind that aspires to enlightenment or our bodhicitta decline or leave altogether in our next life? It's necessary for us to abandon the black thoughts or black activities, and it's necessary for us to practice the white activities.
다 면세던 주선세간데 장주 선비 동바 마토 공개 장주 선들 면세라 그래서 장주 선비 동바 토자도 장주 선들 주선라 그래서
Less so. What is the differentiation between aspiring bodhicitta and then the latter, engaged bodhicitta? The differentiation is as follows. Engaged bodhicitta is bodhicitta that one has once he or she has taken the bodhisattva vow. Aspiring bodhicitta is a form of bodhicitta that does not include the bodhisattva vow. So once the practitioner who has bodhicitta takes a bodhisattva vow, then the bodhicitta turns from aspiring bodhicitta into engaged bodhicitta. So engaged bodhicitta is bodhicitta which also is imbued with the bodhisattva vow.
어제 다른 장주 선바는 장주 선제네 안에 신도를 해야 되버 좀 여바이나 되는 장주 선비 동발랭고 장주 선비 동발 시스 버바신 야내지하게 여바이나 안에 장주 선비 동발랭고 서레스.
So this bodhisattva recognizes the need to practice the six perfections. And it's because of this recognition that he or she recognizes the necessity of taking the bodhisattva vow. So the bodhisattva then takes the bodhisattva vow so that he or she can then engage in the practice of the six perfections.
다 장주 선비 동바 간데슬랭고래. 안에 장주 선비 동바 랜사가 유드 간데래. 장주 선비 동바 랭케 때도 간데지고 그래. 추가 간데지고는 장주 선비 동바 랭고래서나 되네 장주 선비 동바 소수가 라마담 되네 군이 랭네 디그레스. 라마 메나 안에 조신기 생활래 장주 선비 동바 랭네 디그레스 말베.
So how does one take the bodhisattva vow? What is the object of observation for the bodhisattva vow? What is the basis that is appropriate, or what is the appropriate vessel for the bodhisattva vow, and what kind of ceremony is necessary to take place in order for the bodhisattva vow to be given to someone? Imparted? Is that a word? There's a word like that, right? When it's given to, what's that word? Imparted? So what is the ceremony? So there are two ways in which one can take the bodhisattva vow. One is with a teacher. A teacher can actually give the vow through a ceremony, but one can also take the bodhisattva vow through visualization, through imagining the merit field and imagining that the merit field is witness to the ceremony, and then through recitation of various lines, then he or she also can receive the bodhisattva vow.
어제 다 동반 주동 램베 땡들 소소 타베 리듀스 어떻게 시바르스 글론 장주 선배네 안에 장주 선배 동발레네 야부 시다 야부르스 글론 마다 되네 그주도 그수마다 근예 바마다 글로마다 어떻게 속에는 장주 선배 동발레바 있는 시다게 야부르스 상주변 주 그래서 대 나네 글론 장주 선배네 장주 선배 동발레바데 야슈르스 글론 바마 글론 마.
So those who hold any of the 7 types those humans who hold those who hold any of the types of 7 individual liberation vows are the most suitable candidates for the Bodhisattva vows, and the best or most suitable candidates for receiving the Bodhisattva vow are the fully ordained monks and nuns. So those males and females who have full ordination, and then the levels would go down with the levels of the vows. So the next would be the probationary vows, and then the next would be the novice vow, and then lay vows and so forth. So the best type of vows one can hold to be the most suitable vessel or most suitable basis for the Bodhisattva vow is the full ordination.
다 소소타비 상주 sembe 동바 랭게 소타고 동된 고거를 송바데 다 메이 원도 제네 메이 된 제바제 원도 제바르마도 상주 sembe 동바 제발에 지민지 소타 동바고요 말스 하이 줄라 상주 sembe 와르스 소타 동바요 말스 메이네야 안에 상주 sembe 동바len 소타 동바 메네 동바 제그레스 네 방송 조바 제그 말스 야가도 용 말스 예바때 요르스 소다고 동바 요나 소다고 동바 요베 투네 상주 센레나 야슈 상주 소다고 동바 메바 상주 센레나 메이나 동바 제그레스 이나 동바 야슈 제그 말스 준테 예바테 요르스
서부두 티체나
오야
So it's not saying that one has to hold the individual liberation vows in order to take the Bodhisattva vow, because it's possible for the Bodhisattva vow to arise when there is an absence of the individual liberation vow. We can see in the case of gods and so forth who have taken Bodhisattva vows and have had the arisal of the Bodhisattva vow within their continuum, but do not have the individual liberation vow. It's necessary to be a human in order to receive an individual liberation vow. If one has an individual liberation vow, he or she is necessarily a human being. But there are many cases of non-human beings receiving the Bodhisattva vow. So even in the case of humans, there are humans who have the individual liberation vow, and they are the most suitable type of human candidate for the Bodhisattva vow. But there are also cases of humans who do not have the individual liberation vow, who can also have the arisal of the Bodhisattva vow take place. So the meaning of this is really the best type or the most suitable type of human being for the Bodhisattva vow is one that has taken individual liberation vows previously, prior to the Bodhisattva vow.
다 상주 sembe 동바마 나게들레 안 그런 동바 여바지고 그래서 안에 동바마 가서 그래 동바마 테이블 개바고 그래서 안에 로마는 희지여고 그래서 안에 강에 매봐 안에 주의다니 조합본라 된서 어떤 답이 있었어.
Then dumba yoba kepa ninji
동바마 지발라 개바고 그래서 안에 로마는 희지여봐
Then
동바 보주 니지데
the dumba nanken.
나게
Then
중에 줘봐.
okay.
안에 왔다 니가 최신에 다 가마 가시 못해 두면 깔리 가서 어떤 되는 매바지 가주 있는 시 두게 전듯이 보고 그랬어.
The Jew dang dropadu.
동바 보주 니지데 동바 보주 니지데서 그도 될라운드 자원.
Then the deer. So who can give the Bodhisattva vow? What is the appropriate vow giver? And it's necessary, first off, for that being to have the Bodhisattva vow within his or her continuum in order to give the Bodhisattva vow. So this is the first prerequisite for one to give the Bodhisattva vow. He or she must already have it. Secondly, he or she should be a scholar in the vow ceremony, a scholar in how the Bodhisattva vow is given and so forth. and also have compassion for his or her students, and compassion wishing to give this to his or her students, and also effort in, so never tiring from explanation, wishing to always satisfy his or her students and make sure that there is clarity in explanation, and never being bored with or tired of, never being tired of giving explanation. So these are the kind of necessary prerequisites for a vow, a preceptor.
다 상주 sempre 동발랜드 진도야 레모드는 노야도 두두드는 마문도야도와 두두 제바이나 안에 수수 라마 있는다 라마 있는 디그레 라마고 내는 디그레 초신 레바이나 초신들 산타 샤제 주번 비라 뇌바질로 만데지부 되네 제타스는 뿐나로페 example 제타데 뿐나 파반 잠베 미지슈르 도바 줘발레 뭐게 상주 sembe 동바 간델렘바 나지 내가 상주 sembe 동바 랭기스 차송산다나 인디르스
Shatsel Chupabo Yeladomba, then Mendejipu
되네 보면
request.
저도지 인도네시아에 가서 그래 제단군은 파반 잠베 도바 줘발레
The Papa Jambe Donagare,
잠베 문제슈
Jambeang.
문제슈 동보 암바란자 주비자 암바란자 주비제 근데 상주 sembe 동바 나 상주 sembe 동바 라야 내주주서와
Ale.
된나지 내가 상주 sembe 동바 랭기스
Ale.
그 차송산다나 인디고스
The Jambeang Chuku.
잠베양게 해마 아마란자 주비세네
Amaranjan Jupi.
아마란자 잠 문제슈르
Shanchu Samba.
상주 sembe 아마란자스 네미
Ambaranza.
어때도 근데 상주 sembe 동바 랭지로와
Ale.
된렘바 나지 랭기스
Ale. Ambaranza. Okay, so the way in which one can take the Bodhisattva vow is if he or she is in the presence of the teacher, or could imagine the merit field. And then first, one would make prostration or pay homage, and then make various offerings to either the Lama or the merit field, and then offer a seven-limb prayer, basically, to the object of observation, be it the Lama or the merit field, and then make a mandala offering, and then make a request and get into the vow-taking position, into a position of humility, is a literal translation. Get into a position of humility, and then request to Ambaranza, which is basically Manjushri, previously was a preceptor of the Bodhisattva vow, and at that time Manjushri was Ambaranza. So you're requesting this deity, who is basically Manjushri, to impart the Bodhisattva vow upon you, so to give you the Bodhisattva vow. Here it's requesting the emanation, the previous being who was Manjushri Ambaranza to give the Bodhisattva vow to you.
저는 가서 하기 전에도 저기 건축송라 다저 디바탄지 소소 류글라지 상주 sembe 동발해요. 어떤데 안도스 건축송라 저선도 디바샤바 제수 예랑 어떤데 토네 안데 상주 sembe 동발해. 데 담나 모모도스
Gonchu Sumla Jansu Dro Dipa Tamche Susu Shag
류글라지
Jairang
상제 상주 이지송 상주 sembe 동발송 이서로
the Sanjay Tanche Yiji Sun.
상제 상주 이지송 송도 상주 sembe 동발 개진해 송
The Tama Yangju Sun Sanjay.
상제 상주 이지송 상주 sembe 동발 등에 주긴 있어 말이야.
Okay. Tichana. So you can even see when we take, for instance, an initiation or a permission rite. That's literal for Jainang, permission rite. When we take a permission rite, there is the line in the introduction where we say, I go for refuge to the three jewels. I confess, Dipa Tamche Susu Shag, I confess all of my misdeeds and downfalls and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. and then I request for the Bodhisattva vow. We can see that when we even take a permission rite, we have a very similar way of requesting the actual permission rite to be imparted upon us that's similar to the way we take the Bodhisattva vow. So even if the true, real Bodhisattva vow does not arise within your continuum, if a facsimile thereof does, or if a facsimile of the Bodhisattva vow or something similar to the Bodhisattva vow arises within your continuum, then it is beneficial. So in the Bodhisattva vow has 18 root vows and 46 secondary vows. So this is the way the Bodhisattva vow is numerated. And we can slowly practice or slowly learn about these 64 vows, 18 of them being root and 46 of them being secondary. Over time, we can slowly learn about these 64 vows and understand them. So even now, if we can just hear these words, it's very beneficial. And we can see in the past the example of Vasubandhu, who had a pigeon who was perched outside of his window while he recited all the 3 baskets of scripture every single day. And in the future life of that pigeon, he was born a small boy and was able to eventually become a great scholar. And it was because of the imprints within his continuum of the time when he was outside of Vasubandhu's window, perched as a pigeon, listening to the recitation of these 3 baskets. So in the future, this reincarnation of the pigeon achieved even a greater amount of, reached an even greater level of a scholastic achievement than even Vasubandhu. Sambo de Dondagare, Nipa Dondagare. Nishu Dumbi Tsuchim. Nishu Dumbi
Tsuchim in this secret. Ta Shangju Semba Yorova. Shangju Semba Yula Domba Yorova. Shangju Semba Tejul Domba Shangju Semba the Ganye Ina. Ku Juji Ganye Domba Dea, Nishu Domba Res. Nishu Dumba Donagar. Nishu is a Ganye Sonja Nayo Marvana. Not the Kabatal Tumba Sonja Na. Sonja Nabatel Nishu Lord Nishu. The Dojaris, Nebaris, Chenrezig, the Mongoris, Nishu Domba. Ganye Ganga Dongorva, Gutsuka Telemo Dongore, Galon Maga Telemo Dongore, Galonga Telemo, Galing the Dongoro, Nishu Dombi Tutin. Shanju Samba Zukara Dongore, 7 churches, Ranjinzi Dongo, Ranjinzi, Nishu Dombi Tutin. So it's necessary in order for the Bodhisattva vow to ripen to have 3 different kinds of ethics. And the first type of ethics, Nishu Dumbi Tsuchim, is the ethics related to vows. For instance, abandoning the necessary abandonments. For instance, if one has a layperson's vow, the layperson vow has 5 types, 5 vows, and there are 5 things which one must abandon in order to purely hold the layperson's vows. So it's the ethics of holding vows
is necessary for the foundation of the Bodhisattva vow. Then nipa, tumble lapsar, nipa.
Nishu Dumbi Tsuching is what?
Nishu Dumbi Tsuching lapsar.
Nishu Dumbi Tsuching ta Shangchu Senpi Jule then Sutaku Dumba Yuna Sutaku Dumba then Nishu Dumbi Tsuching is. Shangchu Senpi then Ran Chenzin Kabi Dumba there Nishu Dumbi Tsuching is.
Then nipa donagare.
Nipa Ndarwa. Ta Nipa Gawa Chudu.
Gewa Chudu.
Gawa Chudu said the six for passion challenge had two to what the Jimbata, Tsuching Soya, Zoba Goya, Tundru Soya, Santen Goya, Shiro Goya, six for passion ya, Kona Kondu Payadele, Gawa Chudu.
So the next is the virtuous activities, and this refers to practicing the six perfections, practicing the perfection of generosity, the perfection of ethics, the perfection of patience, the perfection of effort, the perfection of wisdom. The perfection of concentration and the perfection of wisdom. So this is increasing virtue through basically engaging in the practice of the six perfections that the Bodhisattva does engage in. So the first was the ethics of holding the vows. And one thing that I forgot to say is when we speak of the vows of the layperson, he or she abandons those 5 factors. The Bodhisattva abandons the self-cherishing attitude. So this is the main abandonment of the Bodhisattva. I forgot to translate that. I apologize.
Ta Nishu Dumbi Tsuching Landrung Kabasung was in the Landrung and the Anga Nishu Tadun to do that.
Nishu Sadun 27.
Number 27 number. Number 27.
Yene Ngatsu Nishu Sadru Chimasan.
Tadu Ndoro, Ngomba Nachi Shengaro, Zubishan Chu Senjin, Roa Tajin Drondonyo, Tada Koa Ledulos,
Lama Sa.
The Shanchu Sembi Domba Lea de Marbe, Shanchu Sembi Domba, Shanchu Sembi Domba, Lembi Chuga Dend Chuga. Tela Ngozen Jambebe, Ambaranda Juba Ye, Cheta Shanchu Tojeba, Jambe Jin Sanji, Jejin Dole Sheba Tere, Tejin Dene, Rosette, Ngomba Nachi Shengaros, Ngomba Nachi, Lama Yoba Yinan, Lama Yobi Chuga.
We got a bouquet.
Yeah.
That's Korean shape. Injike dan bouquet. That's Kali Kali Jango.
Yeah.
Then the buik the Nishu Sanga. Gangistan Changa Yabio Manga. Nishu Sanga.
Tela Ngozen Jambebe, Ngozen Jambebe, Ambaranda Juba, Sadru Roa.
This Sadru, this Sanga.
Sanga the Sadru Nidle, Domba Lembi Chuga Dend Chuga.
Then Nishu Sanga, then Nishu Sadru.
Sadru.
Okay, Gangistan the buik.
What the
Nishu Sa.
Domba Lembi Chuga, Lama Yoba Jene, Lama Yobi Kundin Land and Degrees, Lama Mena, Tushin Shenga Land and Degrees, what the Dend can do.
Okay, so when we look at then Cheran, the Kabalev song.
Nishu Zanga Tanama, Shin and
Nishu Sadru,
Zanga Zadru Zadun to Porigen Rona.
Sadru Sadun, Saje, Tanche Lagwe.
I let Tambo Gondel. Tela Ngozen Jambebe, Ambaranda Chubai, Jedashan Jutu Jeban, Jambejin and Sanjish, Jenjin Dole Sheba, the Jindan Rasettes, Dumba Lemi Chuga Chuga. Tela Ngozen Jambebe, Zangat Jiludan.
I'm sorry? Before, I thought we were at 26. Does everyone remember? We were at 26 last week, right?
That 25 and then Lunan is it.
25 is talking about how the ministry is in Maharaja.
What is it? Tela Ngozen Jambebe, Ambaranda Chubai, Dumba Lemi Chuga.
Yeah. Okay, so I shall write here very clearly, as explained in the ornament of Manjushri's Buddha Land Sutra, how long ago, when Manjushri was Ambaraja, he aroused the intention to become enlightened. In the presence of the protectors, I aroused the intention to gain full enlightenment. I invite all beings as my guests and shall free them from cyclic existence. From this moment onwards, until I attain enlightenment, I shall not harbor harmful thoughts, or anger, avarice, or envy. I shall cultivate pure conduct, give up wrongdoing and desire, etc. It goes on to speak of the way that one can take the actual bodhisattva vow and the motivation that one should have and what one should engage in and what one should abandon in order for the arisal of the bodhisattva vow, and not only the arisal but the sustainment and ability to increase realization within. This is the section that we've arrived at. So here it says, in the presence of the protectors, I arouse the intention. This is speaking of the ability to receive the bodhisattva vow without the actual teacher present. So here it's saying, in the presence of the protectors, I arouse the intention to gain full enlightenment. And this is the act, I arouse the bodhisattva vow. That's what the meaning behind this is.
Senjen tangje ke tuanda she go res. Senjen tangje ke tuanda she go yezan ane senjen tuanje ke tsutins. Senjen tuanje ke tsutins. Shangju sembe ane ngasong aso ngasong ke dongel ka ne dendrul tiya. Koal ko de ke ngalo ku dongel kan tabal tiya. Ane senjen tangje saje sal tiya. Senjen ke tuanje ya zu res. Senjen ke tuanje ya zu yin da ane shangju sembe juji de tabe lang to sol senjen tuanje ke tsuti la gres. Senjen tuanje ke tsuti.
So
senjen mo phentu je go res shangju sembe. Phentu lo de le senjen tuanje ke tsuti.
Senchen Dunji Suchin. Ethics of Senchen. The ethics of fulfilling the needs of sentient beings is the third type. So we spoke of the virtue, increasing virtue, and then the second, which was the, I believe the, the six perfections, the Nipa, the Gewa.
Goa chudu se ate that Goa chudu de six perfections. Ta senjen ke tuanje sheba la. Senjen ke tuanje sheba la. Shangju chu de senje shindu le mala na sanje to mare. Senjen ke tuanje jachu she to mare. Senjen ke tuanje jachu sheba la. Ane shangju chu de senje ne shindu nyala je ures. Goa chudu. Shindu no lo goa kanga du ures. Goa gu chu kanga du shindu nyala ma je na sanje to mare. Sa ma je na senjen ke tuanje jachu she to mare. Shangju sembe lekha de senjen ke tuanje she hare. Senjen tuanje ke chutu. De yongwa la Goa chudu ke chutu go ures. Sis perfection. Mena ane senjen ke tuanje jachu she to mare. Senjen tuanje ke Goa chudu ke chutu.
Then Tambo Tsutrim, the Jason.
Ane
Akoson.
Goa chudu ke chutu yongwa la nyesho dombi chutu go ures. Nyesho dombi chutu mena ane shindu nyala je akale kha ures. Oya.
Akoson. This Selpum then Yapalangamata.
Yeah.
So the first is the ethics, the actual ethics of the practice of ethics that's necessary that we spoke of initially. So that's the first necessity. The second is the virtuous practices of increasing virtue. And this is the meaning of this is the practice of the six perfections. So if the practitioner doesn't have this ethical foundation, then it's not possible for he or she to engage in a practice of the six perfections. So this is the reason that this is the first of the three divisions speaks of the ethics and what is to be abandoned. The self-cherishing attitude is to be abandoned and so forth. So the abandonments are abandoned. And then the virtues are practiced. And the reason for this is if this being has such a vast focus that he or she wishes to fulfill all the desires of sentient beings, then it's necessary for he or she to practice the 6 perfections. So this is the reason for the second increase of virtue. And the third is the actual fulfilling the needs of all sentient beings, or the desires of all sentient beings. So we can see how all of these are connected. The ethics are connected to the ability to practice the 6 perfections. And once one practices 6 perfections, then it's possible to think of and actually achieve the goal of fulfilling the needs of sentient beings.
我在上就上班做上就就是三节查对让居面些发现周当研究面些对我不也是，所以个三句的也不用那个切都个人娘来结果，新州娘来结果的是，新州娘来结对，那上就三的也不差用过的是，让居没用过的是。让居没是那不能做一包药了，一包的面面那滚银那啥都不多，是种肉是种，配的。 ane chabatan ne dawa jibat bal ko mi ne san shim do ten na ji shanchu sembe raju de mimba
ale ruwa mimba hakoson ripe hakoson mimba
peach pear tree pear
mimba hakoson
din sa to ngol pe mi ne san shim bo ro
hakoson
din hel se tong ro sa to ro then na ji sen de tong bu chabu res
less so
sen de mi bu ya bu zo ya de shin do nyang le je ya res shin do de nyang le je na ane sen de ya bu cha yong ra ju mi yong res ra ju mi pa shin do dance what does it
So within the perfection vehicle, when we speak of this practice of the 6 perfections and so forth, it's very similar to ripening the mind in the same way that a fruit becomes ripe. We can see right now maybe it's a good time for certain kinds of fruit that are ripe, and when they're ripe they're very delicious and they're soft and so forth. And but if they're not ripe, they could be very hard and they would not be ready to eat. Likewise, or similarly, the mind initially is very hard and isn't ripe. And by engaging in these things again and again, then we're able to ripen the mind so that it becomes more pliable. And if it's more pliable, then we have the ability to focus on some of the latter realizations or to achieve some of the latter realizations.
What Shindo Nyang Jin na, and the Shanju is sent there, and then to Shinto Buddha Chana, Sanju the Honorable Chang was it. Raju Meiji Pashin.
So if one practices the 6 perfections, then this allows the mind to become very ripe in the sense, or becomes very pliable or very useful. So this is what is meant or this is the reason for this familiarization again and again.
Genju meji du ngo bu yes genju meji du ngo bu an shanju sembe sejen ge da she go res susu ge sanju me ba na ji yen da ge sen de ya shanju sembe bu da bu zo res to zo ya ge to ta shi je yo res yin ba tang wo res ane yin ba tang ya dun she dun ni an choro de ya ba je wo das ane Samba Zamba Jegurdas, Yabu Jegus, Mellovers, Mellaba Naji, Susunyana Jegurs, Dun Shuba, Dun Tumbas. Shanju Sembe Majenda, Tachurundus Jegundus Jeju Mars, Laba Naji, and the Shanju Semba Kruga, the Yalan Jegurs, Tumba. Tumba Mena, and Majenda Churja Yaji Majilana, and the Shanju Semba Kuru Yaba Majin, Churu Yabajim, Dun Shuba, Dun Tumbas.
Then Tambo, Jimba, Nipa.
Dun Shubas the Marbeta. And the John Tiziabajigurda, and then Shanju Sangungur, Shamba Gungur, Niji Gungur, Shidu Yalanche was Melagur, Shanju Sambe, Vizato Yen Lauro, Yen Laba Naji, Kurung Yalanche. Don't show about 20 by Nilo, Yendal Palo Laba to Susan Yalanche, Ni, don't show 20. Then the Jimba Tamus.
So this the don't you do the Rang Zhen, Tambo Nipa, then Sumba.
Tombo Tunshoba, Majendal Churu,
Akusar.
Yabaji Gores, Yamba Gungores, Hiji Gungores, Majenda Logro,
Akusar.
Laba Naji, Susunya
The Nipa.
Gores, Tunshutun Tuniji, then the Jimba Tangos.
Hakusar.
Jimba,
Okay.
Dujal Jimba Tana, and the Gabu Yungurota, Jimba Jimmy,
Nene, Jipa Gare.
Hemba Mamas, Hemba, Wonderful Thought, no Hashu, Wonderful Love.
Okay. The Jipa.
Jimba.
Okay. Okay, so there are four things also that this practitioner must engage in. And the first is encouraging others to practice. So this is fulfilling the others' needs. So this is saying to others that yes, you should practice the 6 perfections, you should go for refuge, you should engage in these practices, you should try to get the mind that aspires to enlightenment. It's encouragement relative to others and relative to their capacities. So encouraging them in a way that is suitable for them to be encouraged. So now, by encouraging them, then it's not only encouraging others, but it's also then practicing oneself what has been encouraged. So it's necessary then for this bodhisattva to engage in the practices which he or she has encouraged others to engage in the practices of. So it's necessary to, in that respect, for the first two, for self and others, we can see how the needs are fulfilled. The third is to practice generosity, because by practicing generosity, one will inspire, others will flock to him or her. He or she will become someone that others will wish to be around. And if that is created, then it's possible for the first one to be created. It's possible to encourage, because the other people will listen to someone who has a good reputation. And the next is to use pleasant speech, or to use suitable language. And suitable language means using words that are nice or attractive types of words, so that, again, the reputation is a good reputation, so that one is the type of person that others would like to be around, because if that is the case, then the bodhisattva or this practitioner will have the ability to be of the most benefit to others, or to sentient beings, because they will naturally wish to be near him or her.
But the Lodra Gagin Chajaba in the Lodra Gagin Kebajuna, in Chitanko, and the Jero Karino Kushirota, Krum Sandy Abachazaro. Then the good Lodra Genda Logrota, Lone, and then Lodra Genda to the Kebadan, and the Kuru Sena Jinzuando, the Rabin.
Then in the Kepa, the Laptra, the Getru Lana, and Kongi Sam Ya Yong do it.
That Gagin Keba Niana, is a Keba Jibarota, Keba Sen Sagala. Then they are Genda Loya Kilondua.
Genda.
And then
Kepa
Jiggy, and then Suzuki Luja to the Lava Ina, Genda Anju Nyabo, Shida Gabuchi.
Lesser.
Keba in a Lona, Genda Gabu Magic and you.
Lesser.
Good luck, Killer Rota. What the dog is
So it's very similar. You might have two scholars, for instance, who have the same type of knowledge, but if one can explain things and others like or find joy in the explanation, then the explanation is going to be heard and understood easier. So you might have two scholars, and then you take them both to an institution or a college, Lapta Chembo, a big school or a college, and one of them might have a better ability to explain things, and the way he or she explains things, the students take joy in and understand it very easily. So this is the reason why it's necessary to have a nice presentation.
What in the Yoba in there, Yendal and the Sun Dule, Kemakin Damada Yunguzita, Sanju Sambale, Damada Yuzero, Kebata, Makeba, Yendal, Pentu Chimbata, Pentu Chung, Dimu.
So when we speak of the practice of the 6 perfections and so forth, we have also those who are scholars of explanation and scholars of practice, and those who are of a great level of ability, and those of a medium level of ability, and those of a very small level of ability. So we can see that there are all these different types of possibilities. The Chishin of Chua Dan Lenja, the Chutsu Chi Dan Karma Junga Lesson.
Yeah. 다 가와 추디기 추디스나 어때서 가와 추디스 추디스야데 상주주의 생제네 안에 신도 양래제나 안에 상주선 뭐 그런 주의 민보야 봐 용어를 연다볼 마이 상주선 데네 제주 메제 두용 어버지 제그 상주 네 수수 여바 나지 제그 상주데 연다볼 간데서 거라서나 안에 된된티바 된쇼바스 안 도시고 다스 상주 로마도 라우거스 Shamba Gongore, Yejo Gongores, those Laura, so Lava Naji, Susanji, Tenshini, then the Jimba Town, Hamba Mo, Ketcha Kebashi waters, and Jesse, okay,
So by engaging in these virtuous practices, or the increase of virtue, when we spoke of the first one, and by engaging in the 6 perfections, for instance, actually the first one was the ethics, but the second one is the virtue of ethics. And by engaging in the 6 perfections, then this not only creates a nice environment for the mind, or the continuum of the bodhisattva, him or herself, or the continuum of the practitioner, but it also encourages others, and also makes it so that others will be attracted to that bodhisattva. So we can see that first he or she must be able to encourage others, but then also not only encourage others, but fulfill his or her own needs by actually engaging in the practices that he or she is encouraging others to do. And then by practicing generosity, he or she becomes more attractive. And then also by having a nice presentation, or a nice way of saying things, literally it's nice presentation. By having a nice presentation, this also allows others to be attracted by saying, okay, everybody's okay, you know, whatever you think, this is okay, whatever you think, that's okay, and just trying to create this sort of environment is the most beneficial way for this practitioner to conduct him or herself.
사제게 셔르바지 레소나 셔르바든 사질 좋아래온 거스 ane shiribe da yus kilen wores ane ko sanjil tragachi wores ane kanza ga da yo mares sanjil dedu ane sanje ge kol da yo mares lana ko sen jibu yo mares ane sanje ko samba chene da yores la wores tanu ko sanjil tebaji wores o kale ane da ngone de yo marde ine sanje ge ku samba de da yores la jabade ko gabu chanu wores kurum phe to wores
Lesson. So we can see stories in the past where the Buddha has taught various things according to the capacity or the scope, or capacity of the practitioner. There were times when non-Buddhist practitioners came to Buddha and said, is there a self of persons? Buddha, is there such thing as self of persons? And Buddha knew that if he stated, no, there is no true self of persons, that it would disrupt the mind of the non-Buddhist, and that they would just think that he was incorrect or mistaken. So by using skillful means, Buddha was actually said, yes, there is a self of persons. And by stating this, this created faith in the mind of the non-Buddhist towards Buddha, because he thought that Buddha had a correct view. So we can see examples of Buddha giving explanations that are appropriate for the vessel that he or she was giving the explanation to. The reason I say she is there is not a masculine in the Tibetan, and there is Tara, and she gives explanations too. So that's why I use both he and she, just translator's notes. So for Buddha or for Bodhisattva, because there's Buddha, the male and female, and it's not specific in the Tibetan. This is the reasoning behind that.
다 세계 전체의 수진 다 야부 용화라 니쇼 동비 수진 간 루르스 삽 최실 까마도나 안에 시스 버바진 야래 용어 말스 니쇼 동비 수진 간 루르스 라제진 까비 수진 간 루조 라제진 까바 인사레 상주선미 수진 안에 소다고 동바도 소레스 소다고 동바다 안에 가사 와 참아 상주선미 주지 소다고 동바다 안에 라제진 까비 동바 간걸로 상주선미 동바 있는 디그로 니쇼 동비 수진
So, one can engage in a practice of the six perfections if the previous step is in place. It's necessary for one to have the appropriate precepts or abandonments, which is the first one that we spoke of. It's necessary for this practitioner or this being to have abandoned the self-cherishing attitude. Yes, they can have taken the individual liberation vow, any of the 7 types of lifetime individual liberation vows, but most importantly, the abandonment in this bodhisattva yana, or this bodhisattva vehicle, is the abandonment of the self-cherishing attitude. Because without this abandonment, the practice of the 6 perfections is impossible. So we see that it's necessary to have this abandonment in order to move on to the second step, which is the increase and sustainment of virtue through practice of the 6 perfections.
다 니쇼 도비 수진 다 니쇼 따든 대가도스 니쇼 따든 안가 니쇼 따든들 다루지
Nishu Sadun.
넘버 27. 너선 주의 다니다 산나단 차도니 되는 손데 샤추 되는 손에 샤추
Garishene de.
되니셔 도비 수진 도 어디 된 거래
Nishu Dumbi Tsuchim Garishene.
니셔 도비 수진 된 거래 되는 용 거래 되는 니셔 도비 수진 들래 너선 주의 다니는 샤추 사바지엔 너바 지주 말레스 너선 봉고레스 컨트롤하죠 말레스 너선 주의 다니다 선나 봉고레스 차도 봉고 차도를 잘 쓰르바 선나단 차도니 되는 손데 사제 고모마 도지바도 어디서 그걸로 간도지도 봉고레스 도지바도 뭐자오스 어디 사마르바
So when we speak of the abandonments, the vows taken and abandonments to abandon, when we speak of this, we can see that in stanza number 27, it's explained or it's gone over. From this moment onwards, until I attain enlightenment, I shall not harbor harmful thoughts, anger, avarice, or envy. So this is speaking of the abandonment of the self-cherishing, the abandonment of jealousy and anger and envy and all of these sorts of negative emotions, which one must abandon in order to practice, the bodhisattva yana. So here in 27, we see the first thing that we went over explained.
어제 토지바도 맞아고 참바죄베 참바라 죄바 제샤신 디던도 바봉와샤 최진 동바 라가에 사제주스 라바샤스 디바 안에 텐안 버주스 그러베 어 디바도 그거 봉고레스 안에 가서 그래 디던도 바봉와샤스 참바죄베 제샤신 참바죄베 제샤신 네
디던주바 함바자
대진도 마자셔 보네 참버저 제시신스 가서 그래 딱 먹어줘도 생이사 다 먹어줘 디던도 보고샤스 먹어줘도 야보 보고레스 디바 보고레스 디바 마보나 디바 천리 조속에 내송을 제거레스 디바도 보고레스 어디 송인자래 이 셰송의 깔리 가보모도 마셰 등아서 뜻이 잡는지도 디던도 보고샤스 되게 디바 보고서 디바
And the Nishu the Tsuchim. Tsuchim Gare.
대
Tambo.
니셔 동부 추진로 니셔
The
동부 추진
Nishu Sadun da Nishu Saje Nicha, the Nishu Sadun the Tsuchim.
대 말에 니셔 니셔 자드니 니셔 동부 추진로와 니셔 자제의 세제 동식 추진데 세제의 동식
The Nishu Saje Senchen Dun.
세제의 동식 추진
Okay, Nishu Saje. I shall cultivate pure conduct, give up wrongdoing and desire, and with joy in the vow of discipline, train myself to follow the Buddhas. So here I shall cultivate pure conduct. So I will train in the pure conduct of the vows. I will abandon all sorts of wrongdoing. Pure conduct here refers to abandoning the 10 non-virtues. So the 10 non-virtues that begin with killing and stealing and sexual misconduct and so forth. 3 of the body, 4 of the speech, and 3 of the mind. So these 10 non-virtues are to be abandoned in order for one to engage in pure conduct. It says, give up wrongdoing and desire, and with joy in the vow of discipline, train myself to follow the Buddhas. So here, then Nishu Sago the Semchen. Nishu Saje, Nishu Sago the Semchen.
니셔 자고 니셔 자드니 자제로와 니셔 자제의
Nishu Saje, Nge Sampa the Senchen Tsuchen Yomare. The Kaganya Sena the Injike.
너선 주의 다니로와 다 니셔 자제 참버 줘봐 제샤신 참버 줘봐 제샤신 근데 지초되나
Ditan Dupa Pampaja. Tsuchen Domba Lagabe.
최진 동발라게 산지에서 라바샤스 디바도 그가 보네 최진 동발 가버제 거레스 팬 여바다 마송의 내미 여바시네 근데 산지게 지수라고 그래서 산지 해만 간데 배워나 더 나지 냐래제 거레스
Then
산지 지수 라바샤스
then the Shiloka de Tsuchim Gare, the Senchen. Tsuchim Gare.
니셔 동비 최진 공을
Nishu
말해
Dumbi Tsuchim.
니셔 동비 최진
Okay, the Nichiwa. Tuchena.
잘해지
So this particular section also is the abandonments to be abandoned, or the vows to be taken on. So this stanza 28 also falls into that first category. The first one refers to the same thing. Number 27 and 28 both refer to the abandoning the abandonments or the taking on of vows, cultivating pure conduct. Digson. Tamche lapson.
다 다니뉴 주진의 되게 세제된 주진 간에 된 거라서나 다니뉴 주진의 상주도 보면 대신 다 가수 상을 되어로 상제 공부도 발라 개바 담에 손도 수사하고 그래서도 하는 가수 갈리칸 등내 용사 말해서 뭐 요아레스 어떤 제주요 말레스 안에 가르스나 다자 그때에 담부 상주도 세제네 되네 개바 담에 손도 수칸에 사요 바이나 내때나지 제기 상가지고 그래서 다자가 너무 샤자토베 안 동부 상주주도 세제네 안 신루 로여로 된나지 내가 라기 해상바지 세제 된식 주주 세제가 된식이 해상바 있어
Then the Nishu Sago.
니시 자제르다 자제
Saje.
내세 주의다 내게 체디는 뭐시다
Nishu Sago.
다니니 주지로와
The Nishu Sago. The Inji.
근데 지초데 이나 시험도 때초된 가서 다른 대자 말바 선이 하자 라주지 말바 버자도 지체돼 있는 진사데
So maybe we'll give more explanation next week because we've reached an ending area. It looks like maybe these two texts, there's a little difference of some sort. So we're going to just table this till next week because there seems to be some sort of difference. And then we'll continue next week. Then Tanda Triwa Dan Lenja, Tanda Hua.
오케이 뭐는
So first we'll do the dedication and so forth. And then we'll have question and answer session. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient living beings enjoy this pure land. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this mandala to you, precious Guru. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niratayami. So we'll do the Tibetan for the rest.
Nyame bawu jida chenpa dang kundu zambo deyan de jinde deda kunji jesu dalo je geba deda tanje radungo duzum jebe jawa danje di ngawa gala jodunga bade dajen yewe tsawa de kunja Sambo Chijira Dungawani Gari Rawing Orwe Jinyam Ni Bendam Dewa Malu Jongwe Chenrezig Tenzin Yazoi Shamezi Demonu Yun rin jampon ziming ewishin lun dan dominim bon zin jima Khensur Rinpoche Lobsang Tenzin Gaping uzum donga dan judzin da judzun juduzam darujin Geshe Lharampa Yurin Shamen Chishena de Sani Nani Nge Chu Kambala Yongi and Gangi Simengatsu Gangi Sena Nge Sampa the Injike dan Beke the Kakare then Natsu Nyamdu Jang then Selpo
Hmm?
Let me know when you're going to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's our Tibetans seem to be a little different, and the Englishes aren't matching up. Just this last stanza, so we're gonna get together and make sure that it's not a problem that will haunt us. Yes.
In the text, it referred that in the past Manjushri was Ambaraja.
Mhm.
What was he the king of? What is Amba?
The Jambe Yang, Jewa Ngama, the Jelpo. The Jelpo, the Yul Gare, Kabiare, Sacha Kabiare.
Jambe Sacha Kaba in the Jila,
Jaka.
Ambaranzas, Jewelins, Ambaranzas, the Jabuina, Karina, Jambe Yangi, Jewatele, Mil Ambaranza Lower.
Ambaranza, the Sacha Ming.
Sacha Mimare.
No, the
Jambe Yangi, Kojiti.
Kansak Ming.
Kansak Ming. What they get. Anne Shanchu Sambi Dumbala Lojujuaris, history is or Tenaji, Nangazuelang.
Yene, the Ambaraza, the Jelpo, then Sacha the Mingare.
Sacha to Zago.
I'm not sure what the name of the kingdom or the place's name is.
Jambe Ambaranza Jubi Shanchu Sanjay Waris, Shanchu Sambi Dumbala Waris, Lamba Naji, and Amaranza Juba, Shanchu, the Jindan Rasi, the Tibans, the Najing Azuelangis, what the is.
So the Bodhisattva vow was able to arise in Ambaraza's continuum through this ceremony. So we're requesting him because of the we have the same aim as Ambaraza did, to achieve the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So this is the reason for including Ambaraza in this particular ceremony of the Bodhisattva vow, because of the connection Ambaraza, who is Manjushri, has to the Bodhisattva vow.
The London, the Halebi Pachapuda is there. Halebi. Nazulte Kalikavarmadu, Pemasiavers.
This text, the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, is a very high type of text. For us to truly understand the full intent would be quite impossible. It's a very difficult text.
Atisha, the Naleta, Kebag, Nana,
Atisha was the same as the great scholars of Nalanda. He was a scholar of Nalanda, and they were the highest kinds of scholars. Their level of scholastic achievement is just unimaginable. So that's why this text is so inclusive, but also so complex.
Nazo Kansen Sabbath Tambale on duty, London, Jutewur, Mamara. The Kansen, the London.
At our college at Gold Compson, when the new monks arrive, we make them first memorize this actual text, the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. So they have to memorize it at Gold Compson.
Then Sanja to do the lessons on yours, lessons on rare things. Yazul Jema to the G. London car tambo, Niba Somba Zu. Sanja Jil the Tatan, Sanja Niba the College.
So and there's a construction of a way that it's actually performed, or the prayer is done in 3 different sections with different harmonies, or different ways of actually doing the prayer itself in 3 different sections. We also have a melody that goes along with the recitation of the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment at the Compson, at the college in India. So all of the teachings of Buddha, whether it's Sutrayana or Tantrayana, any of the yanas, or I'm sorry, that's Sanskrit, any of the vehicles, lesser vehicle, great vehicle, Tantra, Sutra, all of these are contained within this text, the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. So when we look at the great treatise on the stages of the path by Lama Tsongkhapa, the Lamrim Chemo, and we look at these other very extensive Lamrim texts, or texts on the stages of the path, all of these texts are commentaries on Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. So these very large texts are commentaries on this small work. So Atisha was able to take both lineages of Asanga's lineage and Nagarjuna's lineage and combine and explain both.
Buddha teaching
and also was able to give explanations of the actual words of the Buddha or the pronouncements of the Buddha, the sutric pronouncements of the Buddha. The sutric and the tantric pronouncements of the Buddha. So if we can slowly practice or practice here, it's words practice, but it means like it's relative to whatever activity in the Tibetan, so it could be analyzed. So practice here means engage in analysis again and again of the text. It's just a translator's note to clarify the Tibetan. Anyone else before we end? Yes?
And when we do the prayer of bodhicitta, is that pointless if we haven't taken a bodhisattva vow? Like when the supreme jewel bodhicitta does not arisen, arise, and grow?
We're just asking if it's not arisen, may it arise.
But if you haven't taken the vow.
Then, so you're asking, so this dedication, which one? The one that we do in the prayer book? Shanchu Sencho Rinpoche. The Semche Kantun, the Lana, the Yine, Shanchu Sembe Dumbo Mena, Pen Togudue. Yes, it's beneficial. It's very beneficial. Because this translator's note, real quickly, you're asking for the bodhisattva vow, a request to arise, to grow. So you're actually asking if it hasn't arisen to arise.
But without taking it.
Right, but it's saying you haven't taken it there by asking for it to arise. Yes?
In explaining the three scopes, the teachings shared in common with beings of small scope, one of the essential teachings is of karma and its effects.
Correct.
And that's a prerequisite for developing renunciation and bodhicitta.
That's correct.
I have a question about that. Like, the Buddha said that karma is an unconjecturable.
What's that word mean?
There's a sutra that said like there are four unconjecturables, things that when thought about will just lead to vexation and madness.
In Nagarjuna's text, you're speaking of Nagarjuna?
No, it's a sutra of the Pali Canon.
Okay.
You might have used it in the text too.
Okay.
And also, I think it's in the commentary on the 37 practices of Bodhisattva, whoever was, or it might have been from Geshe Lharampa himself, I don't remember who the quote was from, said, even to understand emptiness intellectually is not that difficult, but karma is the only object of real profundity.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
So I wonder if that's a prerequisite to developing renunciation, bodhicitta. Just trying to gain like a conviction that there are effects of actions, or do we actually need to understand the effects of specific actions?
Okay, I got you. Okay, then the jipu chungo, leidre, the shingu, the leidre, the karma, the leidre. Then the kong trua, the dead school rinpoche, leidre shingu. Yede, the sanje ke lensong dang gomba lodru ke lensong, the leidre, tombani, ke laudu, leidre. Be kali kabudu, lay be kali kabudu, tombani le labudu, lay be kali kabudu, gangen sena the sanje le hakobudu, susu juo the lay hako tugumare. Then the susu juo the leg sema the yon tugumare the jepa the sema musun sema the sema yongrebe gangen sena the jipu chungo the tombani sanlo dangamare. Yene kon leidre tsanlo dangadu, leidre be kali kabudu sanje ke lensong. Then jipa chungo the jipo ledre tamche shin tudue.
Jibu chungu de lende she lao de zuma du chao she do maris. Chao and ding dang. Jibu chimu mat she do maris. Jibu lende raba she lao de zo. Jibu chungu she goris. Din leon du le more she goris. Jibu leon de le more.
Then sema gare jepag sema gangisen kon sega du jewa shema jewa lama tanda de susu jua the ngushi mena hako tu mare. Then kanjre hakogore jepa gare yongore gare yong tudu gangin sena the susu juo ngushi meken the jewangama jema the datu mare.
다 가서 것이 요 말이스.
Lessa.
너시 그 돈에 저 가마도 semang 가서 시 도와요 말이스.
Lessa.
다 가서 다시 가려 하르스나.
Lessa.
리바르스 리바.
Lessa.
리바라 때네 저 가마도 semang 요바데 리바라 때 두두 거르스.
Lessa.
근데 나렌다는 두술 쩌바 줘야 돼. 리바 그 돈에 저 가마 요바데 semang 요 돈에.
Lessa.
그 화차요 거르스.
Lessa. Then it's our the lago.
No, hullo.
So yes, we at this point don't have clairvoyance. So it's not possible to see past life, see future life, see connection of karma and its effects, to actually see them without clairvoyance or without this understanding. But we can arrive at them intellectually, inferentially, by engaging in the same thing that the great masters or great pandits of Nalanda did, engaging in debate, engaging in analysis, and using logic and so forth to arrive at the assertion that there are past and future lives. So we arrive at them through an intellectual understanding based on analysis and correct signs. For instance, a small being of small capacity has a very coarse introductory understanding of the law of cause and effect. A medium capacity practitioner has a medium, a little bit greater understanding of the law of cause and effect. A being of great capacity has a even greater understanding of all of the coarse levels of the law of cause and effect, and so forth. So, and then the more and more subtle levels are understood at the higher levels of the path. So the practitioner understands the law of cause and effect according to the capacity that he or she falls into the category of. So I don't know if that completes your question. There's kind of two answers there. But one is that no, they don't have a complete understanding. And the way that one arrives at it is through engaging in analysis and arriving intellectually and inferentially at it.
저 가마에 봐 생돌 산탕으로 생 그러봐 보주주지 생지도 시바 시바도 시바 가마 송모도 송요 대 가마 거 저를 도마며 버렸어 시바 많이 봐 시바를 해요 말이야 내 많이 맞은 데를 도왔어.
So one way we can acknowledge or assert that there are past lives is by using the example of the mind. What in the mind of a small child, where did this previous mind come from? It must have come from a previous moment's mind, and the previous moments of the previous moments, and so forth. So we will follow it back to a previous life, and we will, if we continue that formula, we will not be able to arrive at an initial point. We will have to state that that it is beginningless, that this mind itself is beginningless, because there has never been anything that was not mind that created mind, just like there was never anything that was not rice that produced rice. So here is one way that we can engage in an analysis to arrive at the assertion of a previous life by looking at mind and where mind comes from.
제가 저만 런칸 유바디 않는 사반도 그래서 공부 유바디 사바지네요.
So going to a future life is very similar to moving out of an old hotel and moving into a new one. We're discarding some old aggregates and then we're moving into a new set of aggregates.
그 산에 아부동 로데 땅에 아부레스.
It seems as though you think of very good things and you'll do well. That's what Rinpoche said. You think of good things and you're going to do well.
근데 산도나 갈래갈 때는 버찰로다 갈래갈 시용으로스.
So if you think about this a lot and then you read the book, the texts, because of thinking about this, you'll understand the texts more.
안 다다 저거 나팔 다지 제도 그 퇴자지가 다가 놓아서 퇴자는 두지. 안 주냐도 나사가리 퇴자를 되는 시도. 미통고.
A doctor depends upon devices and instruments in order to diagnose an illness. Is not able to necessarily see with his or her eyes the illness itself, but relies upon the signs of the instruments in order to arrive at the assertion that there is this disease present or that disease present. But he can't see the disease with his or her own eyes. He has to go through a systematic process of analysis. So there's many reasons that can be given and thought about. So when we look at these great scholars of Nalanda on this painting or this picture behind us, they engaged in intense analysis of these topics of past life, of future life, of karma and its effects, of the two truths, of the Four Noble Truths, and engaged in an extensive analysis of all of these topics through debate and so forth. So although the lamp for the path to enlightenment is condensed and small, we'll slowly be able to understand the same things as they. This human basis is very powerful, and the human mind that is connected to this human basis has so much potential and ability, so we can understand these things.
That's okay.